Welcome to another sewing video. Today I decided that I was going to make something I have never seen anyone do. Maybe I'm just not brain rotting enough, but I have never seen someone make a quilted corset dress. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. For my pattern, I decided to do that um saran wrap and duct tape thing, and it was a lot of work. I did it myself, and yeah, you basically wrap yourself in saran wrap and then wrap yourself in duct tape, and then take a Sharpie and draw whatever pattern you want, blah, blah, blah. And then you have a custom pattern that's custom fit to your body, and then cut yourself out of it. So that was like a lot of work to do on myself, especially to get that back area was hard. So here is that pattern right here on the ground. Cut them out singular and then transferred it to paper, added my seam allowance in here, that goes. And now we're going to transfer that to my fabric. So come on, girl, let's go. Okay, so before doing that, I just wanted to show you the fabric that I have. I have so much fabric that I've bought over the years and collected, and I just haven't gotten to use them. So I just decided that I was not going to go buy more fabric. I was just going to use whatever I had on hand. So bear with me, y'all. When I first saw this fabric, I believe it was Hobby Lobby I got it from, and I thought it was super cute. It's like this paisley, brown, black, and tan beige print on here. And yeah, I thought it was cute. I was like, ooh, I can make like a jacket and some shorts for my brother. That would be cute. But it sat in my closet for a while, and now that I'm getting my second look at it from a while, I don't really care for it at all. It's giving like 80s tie, like, but it just doesn't have that satiny sheen finish to it. It just gives like, this is someone's grandpa's favorite tie that they put in pocket napkin thing. I forgot what that's called. Yeah, this is batting. This is what goes into your comforters. This is what goes into your puffer jackets, some of your trench coats, and this is what's going into my dress. So yeah, so let's get to cutting. I really despise cutting fabric. I actually do. It is like, it's so nerve-wracking to cut your fabric, because if it just doesn't fit, then you just lost out on your beautiful fabric. But hey, don't know unless you try. And it would also make more sense to start with a muslin or a wall, which is basically like a mock-up, before transferring it and using my actual fabric. I don't want to do that. So let's go. Make sure you don't go and put those scissors away, because we're going to need them. We're cutting out our lightweight fusible interfacing. You're just going to lay those patterns back out onto the fusible interfacing, cut them out, and iron them back on. Well, not iron them back on, but iron them onto the respective pieces.
I'm low. Just choking him out.
Hey, yo!
We pin all our pieces together, head to our sewing machine, and sew everything down. Sew all of our panels down with a straight stitch. It's day 2 of working on the corset, and I've cut out the batting and the lining, adding 2 inches to the top and the bottom of the batting, and I added 1 inch to the center back seam. I made sure I pinned all of those panels together and sewed them together with a 1/2 inch straight stitch. They're just assembled the same way the silk fabric was assembled.
Throughout the whole entire corset. This is taking so long, it's so tedious. I'm just gonna put my headphones on and listen to the audio Bible readings. So, yeah.
This is the design that I went for. All of my lines are an inch apart, and I didn't have any tailor's chalk or any washable marker or anything, so I just used crayon. And I wouldn't advise anyone to use iron on this. I would just, after you sewn on top of it, just take a medium or soft, whatever toothbrush you have that you're not using, and get some warm water and some detergent and just scrub the lines out and they'll come out. Now, I will say that the way that I laid out the fashion fabric onto the batting is their wrong side to right side. So it's the wrong side, which is basically where the seam allowance is of the fashion fabric, is touching the right side, which is where the seam allowance of the batting is not. They're touching together and they're laying on top of each other. And I did that because I didn't want the seam allowance of the batting, although I did trim it, I thought it would have added more bulkiness, so I didn't want to do seam allowance against seam allowance. Make sure that your center front seams are lined up together, pin that mid center seam, and just pin the surrounding panels and pin wherever you feel like you need to pin so that nothing moves. Fashion fabric might be angled weirdly as you journey away from the center front and kind of start pinning away at those side seam and back panels, but as long as your center front seam is just aligned with the center front seam of the batting, you're completely fine. And as long as you have enough batting around, going around yourself, your fashion fabric is completely okay. I went ahead and prepped some bias tape just by using some of my scrap fabric that I had left over, and cutting on bias tape is just cutting on that 45-degree angle of your fabric. That's where you're going to get the most stretch out of your woven fabric. So I just cut about, I did 1.5, but I would really recommend if you did like 1.1 3/4 or like 2 inches, because like I didn't really have, it was a little bit of a struggle for me to attach the bias tape after, but you'll see that later. What I mean by I just made them long enough, or I cut long enough, I obviously didn't have long pieces. They were like small strips because they were scraps of fabric. So I just cut enough that I could so I could attach them to make them as long as I needed them to be and just trim off the excess. So that's what you can see me doing here, is I just sewed them all together. I had bought this trim like a while ago and was like, but wait, I want to use the trim, yeah. How can I use this trim on this project? And thus, we did sew it to the top of the corset. But no, for real. Working on this project, I was like, I didn't want the whole big old trim. I didn't want that wide trim just taking up the whole entire top. I didn't want it to get granny, so I just wanted to kind of like I just wanted to accentuate it by using that scallop detail that you can see at the bottom of the trim. So if you can see the light kind of pass through like the top of the corset, I just did like an edge stitch and stitch it
at the edge of the corset, so that when I did attach it to the lining and I had my 1/2 inch seam allowance, it would just pretty much show the scallop detailing when I turned it inside out, or right side out. Yeah.
I am so tired. Oh my gosh. I've been working straight through and just started dinner. I'm making jerk pigtail. You never had jerk pigtail. Sorry, you're missing out. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. So while that is cooking, I'm gonna be trying to finish the boning the lining. But for now, I think I'm just gonna take a break. I'm so tired. Anyway, while her lays behind, go ahead and take a break. I'm gonna go ahead and finish sewing because stuff gotta get done, Bookie. I don't know what you're trying to do, but we need to get this done. So I went ahead and sewed the boning channels on because we have to do that before we attach the lining to the actual corset. And you know I want to be snatched as a corset. I want some bone in there. I want a little small waist. So that's what I did. We gotta clip the edges or the corners of our boning channels so they don't stick us in the sides or in the hip area, in the waist area. Just trim off the sides and round it off. You can even use a file and file it down. But yes. Okay, so here's the tricky part, you guys. So to insert your boning inside of your boning channels, if your boning is stored like in a spiral or it was stored in a weird way where it curves, you want that curve to go against your body. Okay, so hold on, let me see if I can like draw something here so that you can like get the visual, you know, like yes. Alright, my lovelies, we're finally moving on to attaching the lining to the silk fabric. And I just did that by doing 1/2 inch of seam allowance and trimmed off all of my excess trim and the excess seam allowance. We trim off the excess seam allowance at the top because we don't want it to be bulky when I turn it right side out. You still want to leave a little bit, just enough, because we're going to just move that excess seam allowance over to the lining side and top stitch it so that it just doesn't bulk up and like kind of rise up. Am I doing too much? I'm gonna do too much. Let's just watch me do it. Let's just watch. To make sure everything else, such as the center back seam and the hem, are aligned and together, I just did an edge stitch around the perimeter so that everything can be equally encased in the bias. I've added a boning. Let's see. I'm adding boning to right here, the edge, and it's going to get encased in the bias here. So yes, I'm going to do the same thing for right here. It's finally time to attach the bias tape, which is pretty much like we're getting to the end. And I just did like a 3/8, or I might have done 1/2 inch. I don't really quite remember. I think I probably did 1/2 inch just to make sure that the boning in the center backs were encased. But that corner piece did give me a little trouble. You're just gonna have to like watch a couple of reels on how to sew bias binding or bias tape on corner areas, because I had to watch a video like 8 times almost to get this. And make sure you get your tailor chalk ready or your crayon ready, because you're gonna have to mark as you like flip over each corner piece part so you can know where you should continue sewing when you flip it over. So you have to mark your seam allowance where you can begin.
it's time for my favorite part. After cutting off all my excess and folding over my bias tape on the inside as well as I can, because, you know, like I said, add an extra 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch because it was a little tough pinning it in place, I can finally hand sew.
Yeah, look at Chris. He's cool, good looking, got that swagger, and I'm like wallpaper and a hoodie.
So this is the inside of the corset. I did the blind stitch the binding in place. I just wish I would have added 1/2 inch because when it came to like sew it over this edge, I just had to whip stitch it because it would not fold over and be clean like this. So it looks on the back. So it looks on the front. I just have to punch some grommets through it and it will be all done. Last minute, I decided I want a modesty panel, so I just cut a piece of rectangular that was 1 inch shorter than the center back seam of my corset, and it was about 4 to 6 inches wide. I did have the self fabric and the batting, and the lining was attached right side to right side, so it was laying on top of the self fabric, and then I just stitch a perimeter around that, leaving a little bit so that I can turn it inside out. And then I just whip stitched that closed and quilted a simple straight line design, kind of matching the corset, and that was pretty much it. And I just kind of whip stitched that closed onto the corset. It was really kind of like a last minute detail. It wasn't really professionally nicely done, so yeah. And we're finally at the end. All I have to do is put in these eyelets right here, which I've never put in eyelets. I've put in grommets before, which are just bigger than eyelets. I think that's really just the main difference. I just used a tool that I got from Hobby Lobby. I think it was about like $10 for the pack for the clamp tool, and it came with like different variety colors of eyelets. So I just went ahead and marked, I believe I did 1 inch spacing between each eyelet. Then you poke a hole. I believed I didn't have my awl on me. Should use an awl. I'll have like my seam ripper. So I use my seam ripper, and then I just push my eyelet through the holes. And you just squeeze the holes with the clamp. That's as best as I can explain that with you. You just gotta read the instructions. Girl, it is late. What are you doing here? You waiting on that reveal. Girl, if you don't, you'll get that in the next video, okay? There's still a skirt and some leg warmer boot cover things that go with that whole ensemble. Yeah, you gonna get that in the next tutorial, okay? Just you gotta go. You got get to stepping. Get to stepping.